We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football, even the mess that former commissioners leave behind. Welcome into the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel if you love college football. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your psychiatrist. Share it with your priest, your significant other. Share it across your social media platforms. Welcome in. Kevin Warren leaves a mess, and this is no surprise to the PATC community. We've been talking about for weeks and for months. We told you the stories would be coming out of Kevin Warren and his leadership. I think we said it in our last live show. I know we've been pretty consistent here at Peek Around the Corner. We said it was somebody else's story to tell. Kevin Warren, the number one hurdle. There's other hurdles that remain, but he was the number one hurdle for further Big Ten expansion. We said at the time, even if everything else lined up correctly, even if the money was there, even if the presidents wanted it, there still wasn't going to be Big Ten expansion. Because if Kevin Warren was in that seat, we were raked over the coals, but now you're seeing more and more evidence that what we were telling you was the absolute truth. A peek around the corner. Pete Thamel, breaking news, this ESPN. We're going to hit that. We're also going to hit Brett McMurphy's article that he tweeted out about the ACC meetings, the information that he has brought forward. All that tonight at Peek Around the Corner. Thanks for y'all coming in. Jay Permutter, Matthew Carlson, Buckshot Kid. Good evening, Greg. Good evening to you, Bruce Harris, Boomer K-Do Tater Tots Conundrum. West Virginia guy 56 is in the house. Tony, Tough Tony the Gopher Tater Tots. J-Rod is in the house. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Rick Olson. Jared Jones. Buckeye. Jared Jones is in the house. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid to come into Huntington Bank Stadium in November to play out in the cold at night to go against the Gophers. The Buckeyes don't want us. The Nittany Lions don't want us. The Spartans don't want us. I think that's the story, right? Isn't that the story coming out of tonight? I kid, I kind of kid. Let's get to our sponsor for tonight's show. The Blue Ridge Coffee Craft is different. The clean hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, a richer, a healthier coffee that is less bitter and less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand pick coffee beans, the smoothest coffee we've ever had here at the Little General's house. The best coffee we've ever had. If you want to try this coffee, go to the link provided in the description. And if you want to support our channel in doing so, put PATC in the comment section. Also go to our merchandise store. Any day now, we're going to have new merchandise, new shirts with the new logo, new art. So take a look at that in a couple of days. And of course, College Football's Peek Around the Corner presents Cloak and Dagger. Lots of Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, hallelujah, that Kevin Warren put his notice in. That was what happened throughout the Big Ten offices, athletic director, coaches, and everywhere. Okay, let's get to how unfinished business. TV deal led to an unexpectedly hectic first month for the new Big Ten commissioner. Holy smokes. Tony Petitti. It hasn't even been a first. Didn't he start May 15th? He's only 6 days into this job. Holy cow. Pete Thamel broke it, ESPN, when the Big Ten officially introduced Tony Petitti as its new commissioner nearly a month ago. He listed 4 immediate priorities in his role as one of the most powerful people in college sports. The league needs to integrate USC and UCLA for the 2024-2025 season. Explore the new media rights deal for the expanded college football playoff. That's a big one. That's a huge one. And focus on the tricky issue of name, image, and likeness. Lastly, Petitti prioritized the official completion of the massive television contract worth more than $7 billion negotiated by his predecessor, Kevin Warren. This issue may have seemed like a mere formality, but complications to the much celebrated deal rose soon after he accepted the job. I celebrated the job. I celebrated the deal when it first came out, and I still do so. This is only a fraction of the deal that this issue is affecting, but it's a big one. No question about it. Big Ten might not be able to get the full value of this deal from NBC. They might not be able to get the full $350 million a year. We'll get into it here at Peek Around the Corner Sunday night, May 21st. Back to the article. Nearly 3 months before the season kicks off and those TV deals begin, the Big Ten does not have a completed long-form contracts, which include the fine print details. Instead, Petitti is engaged in significant horse trading. Wow. When you're into horse trading on a deal that you believe you've locked in, we've got issues. in the Big Ten. Petitti is engaged in significant horse trading, according to multiple sources, to get the NBC primetime deal finished and figured out what the networks calls outstanding issues in order to uphold as much value as possible. To keep as much as that $350 million per year in the deal, because it looks like you're not going to get $350 million anymore from NBC. And we'll get into the reasons why as we go through the article. These deals aren't done, and they aren't what they were represented to be from the standpoint of the NBC deal and the availability of all members to participate in November games in prime time, said an industry source. So these 4 games in November, sometimes maybe a 5th, but mostly 4 games, average 4 games, 4 night games, NBC prime time. They're not going to get the big heavy hitters for these games. NBC, they thought they were going to do it. They thought they were going to get the heavy hitters, the Ohio State, the Penn State, the Michigan. But it doesn't look like they're going to do it. Doesn't look like they're going to get the heavy hitters. Interviews with nearly a dozen sources in and around the Big Ten and the college sports industry paint a picture of Petitti sprinting to navigate details left unresolved from his predecessor. As a result, there's a trail of unhappy athletic directors seeing money disappearing from their bottom line. You know, when you get a deal done, you project earnings. You project these things out, years and years out, and then you start spending. Your projections on spending acts accordingly. Already, money is disappearing from their bottom line. Frustrated television executives, NBC, and big-name coaches, Tom Izzo, there's other issues in this media contract, and big-name coaches irked about the lack of transparency and details that were not communicated to them. Once again, Kevin Warren failed in communication. He did it during the pandemic. He absolutely failed miserably. And then this deal, even was something that he kind of knows how to do, that he was brought in to get the new media deal, he did not communicate. He did not coalesce. He did not find consolidation within the Big Ten Conference on any of these issues. Kevin Warren, back to the article. Kevin Warren took over as Big Ten Commissioner January 2020. He dealt with COVID. He brought USC and UCLA in the conference. I'm going to talk more about that tonight. We know here at Peek Around the Corner that there was very little confidence with Kevin Warren among the Big Ten officials when he was bringing in USC. That's why USC Money Perch leaked it to the Big Ten Money Perch. We were given the information. That was all about letting Kevin Warren, that they knew that they wanted this to get done. There was so little trust with Kevin Warren. We talked about that in the spring of 2022. We talked about that when we started this YouTube channel. We've been talking about that the last few months. The biggest reason why the Big Ten couldn't go further in expansion, and there were other hurdles, but the biggest hurdle was Kevin Warren himself. I hope that now has become clear to everybody. When he accepted that job, he said he was leaving. This is when Kevin Warren accepted the job as the Chicago Bears team president and CEO. When he accepted that job, he said he was leaving the Big Ten in a better position, which was true financially, as his schools project more revenue than any league over the course of the deal. And that is still true. That is still true. However, there are issues in this media deal. His work adding USC and UCLA to join the conference after the 2023-2024 season was widely praised by members and provided a financial jolt to the television deal. On campus, it's a bit more muddled. Big Ten schools have seen potential revenue disappear. It's already disappeared, some of it. Not a whole lot, but some of it. And all of it matters. Big Ten schools have seen potential revenue disappear the past few months from a contract that was announced back in August as being worth an average of nearly $1 billion per year through the 2029 football season. More than $70 million in total is suddenly in flux. That's nearly $5 million per school. And it has left administrators around the league seeking answers and calling for financial accountability. Recently, schools have found out the following. They're going to have to pay back nearly $40 million to Fox. $40 million. $40 million they're going to have to pay back to Fox because according to sources, Warren delivered NBC the Big Ten title football game in 2026 without the full authority to do so. That's incredible, ladies and gentlemen. It was odd when that came out and it was listed 2026 NBC gets the title Big Ten championship game. He didn't have the authority to do so. This was all unfolded under the complicated backdrop of the Big Ten Conference not actually controlling the rights to the inventory of this latest deal. The Big Ten Network does, which is majority owned by Fox. More on that below. Fox used to own 51%. Now they own around 61%. They're going to have to pay $25 million total for a deal to pay Fox back for the lost 2020 football game inventory. We kind of knew about that anyways. This came after an arrangement between Fox and the conference that was unable to muster the lost revenue from the COVID-19 season. But here's the big one. There's tens of millions of dollars of value of the NBC primetime deal in flux. Tens of millions of dollars. 30, maybe 40, maybe 50, maybe 60. And in this article early on, it said 70 million. As Petitti has been racing to ensure it keeps as much of the original value as possible. Historically in the Big Ten, after the first week in November, schools were not required to play night games for a myriad of reasons. Health recovery, campus logistics among them. These were known in league circles as tolerances, and the prior television contracts accounted for them. Multiple sources told ESPN there's been a pushback from a number of schools, including Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, to play those late November night games under the new contract. Now, I do blame Kevin Warren's lack of communication, but I also have to give a little shot to my fellow Big Ten members, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. What did you expect when you're getting all this money from NBC? You had to expect you were going to play late November games. If you want a big boy money, if you want a big boy contract, you have to do stuff that normally you wouldn't have done in the past. Back to the article. That leaves Petitti to figure out how to uphold a deal for hundreds of millions of dollars for primetime games without the cooperation from some of the league's marquee teams for part of the regular season's most important month. So yes, it's only 4 games or potentially 5 games. It's really 4 games because that first week in November, no one really had a problem with that. It was after that first weekend. But whatever, let's just say those 4 games. 4 games, November. It's a solvable issue. It's an important issue. It's solvable. But these were supposed to be huge nighttime games on NBC. Athletic departments and coaches around the Big Ten say they were surprised November night games would be part of the deal. So that gets back to my shot at Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. What if they didn't even know? What if they had no clue? What if Kevin Warren didn't even communicate this to any of the leadership of the Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and others? They weren't asked for permission to play them prior to the deal or informed of the change ahead of the deal, according to sources. If true, Wow. Kevin Warren, once again. At the same time, NBC wasn't aware until well after the initial contract was signed this summer that these big brand schools had historic tolerances that were part of the prior television arrangements and would resist being available. NBC wasn't aware. They should have been. They should have been. NBC was surprised, and I was surprised, said Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel. We had not discussed, and I had not discussed with anyone in the league to change the tolerances we had agreed upon years ago. Within the industry, though, there was an expectation that, considering the scope of the deal, all schools would play in prime time. And there's a lot of truth to that as well. There is blame to go around, but ultimately, Kevin Warren, come on. You can't even communicate to all the schools in your conference, the leadership, that the expectation was all schools would be available to play November primetime games. You couldn't even communicate that to your schools. And then you couldn't communicate to NBC that there was resistance, a past resistance from some schools to play November primetime games. The fault here, back to the article, the fault here is with administrators on campus, said another industry source. How did the presidents, the chancellors, and the athletic directors not know this? The universities all signed off on the deal. So the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What a screw up. What a screw up here in the Big Ten. While this is being worked through, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State recently agreed to concessions to make short-term sacrifices to help the league make up for some lost revenue from the NBC deal. Penn State will play on the road in a short week of Black Friday against Michigan State, a game that was scheduled before Penn State agreed to it. Ohio State will host Michigan State on November 11th, the latest ever home night game in Ohio State history, which is viewed as another concession to help the league through this moment. This is what he's walking into right now to Tony Petitti. Another industry source said of Petitti. Tony is trying to save it. And what Penn State and Ohio State are doing is actually trying to minimize the losses. Warren did not return requests for comment. We're excited to start a Big Ten deal this fall, an NBC spokesman told ESPN. We had a great relationship with Warren, same with Petitti. We're confident that any and all outstanding issues are well on their way to being resolved. And like I said, and I said it on Twitter, I said it in the show, this is solvable. I mean, this isn't like, this isn't going to bring down the whole NBC part of the deal with the Big Ten. But man, Big Ten having to pay $40 million back to Fox, trying to resolve this issue. The rest of the article goes into the Fox, it goes basically into the Big Ten television deals were effectively sub-license arrangements. We don't have to go into the rest of that. I can't wait to read your comments, take your phone calls. Now, back to Kevin Warren. Oh, okay. April 17th. I don't know why. Yeah, that's correct. No, I don't think he started April 17th. Tony Petitti started May 15th. Kevin Warren walked out the door April 17th. Tony Petitti started 6 days ago. So, again, look. Kevin Warren. the confidence was lost real quickly in his tenure as the Big Ten commissioner. And it did affect that USC UCLA thing. We were in that mix, as you know, peek around the corner, Flag Empire. We received a whole bunch of communications. I have a notebook about it. There was no trust with Kevin Warren. That's why things got leaked out. It did not get Houston chronicled, but there was a lot of mistrust with Kevin Warren. And when we started this YouTube channel in 2022, that's one of the first things we talked about. And when Kevin Warren put his notice in, right away we said a peek around the corner. That was the largest hurdle for further Big Ten expansion. I think people are finally understanding what a huge issue Kevin Warren was. Now, in regards to night games in November, well, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be cold games being played in December in playoffs, and they're going to be at your home campus. So, while Kevin Warren did not communicate this issue, he did not communicate at all, very well at all, as the Big Ten commissioner. And it was his downfall for the Big Ten. Downfall as commissioner. All Big Ten schools are going to have to start thinking a little differently here. There's going to be nighttime games. There's going to be day games in the frozen tundra, playoff weather, Big Ten. So get your big boy pants on. You're going to have to be asked to play in situations that you were never before asked to. I understand these schools weren't told. It wasn't, I get all that. Bad leadership from Kevin Warren. But putting that aside, things have got to change here. We're getting paid a huge contract in the Big Ten. Massive money. Which means you have to give your media partners a large bandwidth of value. And part of that is November night games with big heavy hitters being a part of the schedule. That's just the way it is. Don't know how. The only other way I can see is Big Ten expanding with like an Oregon and Washington, and they agree to take some of those November night games. But look, you don't expand to solve. Look, you are already lost value in this NBC deal. Some of it, you're getting some of it back. Some schools have made concessions. But to expand with an Oregon and Washington, you're going to have to make that up and more because you're adding two slices. So in some ways, you can look at this as an opportunity for Washington and Oregon to make concessions to say, each of us will take a November nighttime game. Suddenly you have big brands playing in November, issue solved, but you have two extra pieces. You're gonna have to make up what you just lost and then go over the top on that. Go over the top on that to include them in. So I can see it both ways here. High school plays November Friday night games. Kevin, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and they did talk about in the article, will Kevin Warren get a bonus? I didn't want to go through all that. I thought we went through the most important items in that article. If you want to read the whole thing, there is a link provided in the description. Sean says this is probably the first of many articles that are going to come out about Warren was mismanaging the conference. Yes. And we gave you all a peek around the corner on that. The last 3 or 4 live shows, I made it a point, have it in my notebook, to make sure that we discuss Kevin Warren, even though he's gone. He was definitely the number one hurdle for further Big Ten expansion. Now, what happens now? Well, hopefully they can get as much of that deal back as possible. Hopefully there's more concessions. Is Oregon and Washington a potential solution to that issue? It is. It is. It most definitely is. However, the money's got to be there. Kevin Warren's not there anymore, so that's a big hurdle. Gone. But there are still hurdles. Let's get to further in the article, Tom Izzo, Michigan State basketball coach, he's uncomfortable. He has questions about how much streaming is in the deal for basketball and the Peacock. You see, the Big Ten, they were not convinced about streaming. Not yet. Not yet. That's why Amazon sort of lost traction and NBC came on in and got the deal, $350 million. Big Ten was very wary of going and streaming too early, too much, too fast. That was also part of the article. Again, you can read it in the link provided. Now, we're going to get to McMurphy's article, ACC Meetings, ACC at a Crossroads, as Magnificent Seven seeks more revenue. This just came out this evening on Twitter. It did come out originally on May 19th, 2 days ago. Let me get this a little bit bigger so y'all can see it a little bit easier. Brett McMurphy, Amelia Island, Florida. On the first day of the ACC spring meetings at the Ritz-Carlton, Amelia Island, the league's Magnificent Seven was exposed. News broke that officials from Magnificent Seven schools, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, had been working behind the scenes for weeks. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. They were trying to figure out ways to increase revenue because they believe they bring significantly more value to the league and perhaps devise a way to make a clean break from the ACC and form their own conference. To do so, the biggest hurdle, the biggest mountain to clear is the league's supposedly ironclad grant of rights, which runs through 2036. On Wednesday, 2 days after my Magnificent Seven tweet, Brett McMurphy was the one who broke the news of what seven schools was part of the Magnificent Seven. He broke it and he labeled it the Magnificent Seven. On Wednesday, 2 days after my Magnificent Seven tweet, the meetings concluded. Officials from all 14 schools and Commissioner Jim Phillips put on their happy faces. They laughed and smiled. There was renewed optimism all around. Publicly, they said all the right things about their renewed commitment and desire to make it work. The only thing missing was a verse of Kumbaya. Privately, it's a much different story. Bam! The money shot. Brett McMurphy. Privately, not in public, but behind the curtains. Privately, it's a much different story. The late, great Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Light, and no, I'm not going to sing that song tonight, provides a more realistic view of the school's view of the ACC grant rights. I swore that I would love you to the end of time. So now I'm praying for the end of time to hurry up and arrive. Because if I got to spend another minute with you, I don't think I can really survive. I never break my promise or forget my vow. But God only knows what I can do right now. I'm praying for the end of time so I can end my time with you. Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. I could tell you stories about me and the Smack singing that song at St. Cloud State in the late 1980s, but we'll continue. And an ACC athletic director told me that was a pretty good comparison and not a bad song. That sums it up rather nicely. The 3 days of meetings didn't result in the Magnificent Seven receiving a get-out-of-ACC jail card, but they did succeed in moving closer to an unequal revenue distribution model based on performance. This will reward the more successful programs that make college football playoff bowl games and NCAA tournaments. Now, it sounds like they make it $10 million a year for some of those highly performance schools. But that's not a long-term solution. As Brett McMurphy says, it's basically putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. But don't blame Phillips. He's not the guy who caused the problems. He's handcuffed by the league grant of rights. The same one required when ESPN created the ACC network, saved the league in 2016, extended those grant of rights from 2027 to 2036. It's gotten to the point where Phillips is saying, ACC, we're going to remain third in media revenue. Forget the gold or silver. ACC's hoping to land the bronze medal. Go ACC. We're number 3. And then the article goes on and talks about Phillips and what they're trying to do. They're under a lot of they're under a lot of stress. The part I want to get to, Brett McMurphy highlights what Virginia Tech Athletic Director Whit Babcock said. It gave a tremendous explanation to the Richmond Times-Dispatch, David Teal, that summed up the Magnificent Seven schools' current mindset. And then we're going to end this article with this, what Babcock says. The tough thing about being an athletic director in times of conference realignment, real or perceived, is there's nothing you can really say that's the perfect answer, Babcock said. If you are undyingly loyal to your conference, which the ACC's been great to us, then your fan base thinks you're ignoring reality. If you come out and say you want to keep your options open, you're not exactly making friends in the room. And with the commissioner. It's a great article. Brett McMurphy. Again, there's a link provided in the description. Go read the whole thing. Brett McMurphy is the one. He crushed it. He's the one who exposed. He's the one who named the Magnificent Seven schools who were meeting in secret, cloak and dagger style, to potentially form their own conference or potentially find a landing spot with the SEC in the Big Ten. T-Duck, Minnesota at Oregon, bring it on. Or Oregon at Minnesota, bring it on. How about that, huh? Like I've been saying, I want to see that 2024 schedule, and I want to see NBC primetime game, UCLA Bruins at Minnesota, second week in November. That's what I want to see. Because they're not going to give the Golden Gophers USC, not the first year. So give us UCLA. Let's do it. Let's do it. Bruins, Gophers, at night, Huntington Bank Stadium. Tony says, I saw the Big Ten only made $9 million per school more than SEC. I thought it would be more. Well, first of all, the new contract for the Big Ten and the new contract for the SEC hasn't even taken place yet. Those payouts, those conference payouts that you all saw published, that wasn't under the new contracts for either conference. And while we're getting reports that the Big Ten total contract might be less than it was reported because of this issue with NBC and the schools having to pay back Fox Sports some money, we don't know. We truly don't know the entire SEC media deal. They really never made that public. Keep that in mind. And they never really made the total money public before Texas and Oklahoma joined the SEC. So we really don't know the total value of the SEC's new contract starting soon, after this year. And again, those numbers that you see are just conference payouts. They're not total revenue by the schools. If you do the total revenue by the schools, the SEC schools on average still have a slight advantage over the Big Ten schools on average when it comes to total athletic revenues. Keep that in mind as well. Daniel says Washington and Minnesota. T-Duck says 50 degrees and rain at Oregon in November. Well, it's going to be a little bit different in Minnesota. Geez, I hope they give Minnesota a night game in November. Make it happen. Make it happen. Tony says, T-Duck, I think Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA can all play one NBC prime time game in November in 2024 and beyond. Yeah, on paper, in a lot of different ways, an Oregon and Washington edition will make things easier, less complicated when it comes to scheduling. Obviously, with this NBC situation. But there are two more slices of the pie. And if you are already $5 million behind than your expectations, if you are Purdue and you're making already $5 million less and maybe you make a couple $1 million more, and then you're bringing in Oregon and Washington, you have to come in. Somebody has to pay the freight of Oregon and Washington, unless they're willing to come in as a deep discount, which they may do. It may be the solution for everybody involved. Big Ten wants Washington and Oregon. It's the timing. There are hurdles. There are the timing issues. There are legal issues. And of course, who's going to pay the freight? But Big Ten wants them. We can tell you that. We've been telling you that for months and months and months and months. We didn't need President Carter's, Nebraska's President Carter's words. Well, he didn't say Oregon and Washington, but he did say more expansion is coming for the Big Ten. And it's going to be both West and East. Yeah. Minnesota should play their entire season in November at night and at home. I don't know about that. People would get rather sick of that. November in Minnesota is a lot. November in Minneapolis is a lot different than November in Madison. Look it up. Or in Iowa City. Definitely difference between Minneapolis and Iowa City. It's a different thing. I had someone tweet to me and say, it was a USC fan, something like, boy, you really need that advantage, that cold November weather against USC. But you know what? We played up north in Colorado, and we had no problems. Well, first of all, I would admit Minnesota needs all the advantages they can get in weather to compete with USC. No question about it. But number two, I would have to say Minnesota's not Colorado. Colorado's not north. Look at the latitude lines. So I'll just leave it as that. Okay, let's get to your phone calls. If anyone wants to give us a call tonight, it's a Sunday night edition. 763, let me get that phone line working. 763-260-1333. What do you think? Kevin Warren left a mess on aisle 5. Can Tony Petitti, can he clean it up? Can he actually clean it up? November is mild in most places in the Big Ten. I know I saw some tweets from some Oklahoma Sooner fans, one in particular saying, well, that was stupid of Big Ten to have this NBC primetime part of their media package, because don't they know people die in blizzards? For most of the Big Ten Conference, it's mild, maybe a little wintry, maybe a little water, maybe 50 degrees. So most of the time, it's not a problem. T-Duck, Bay Area's got good weather in November. California, Stanford. Ryan Matson, I'm okay with a few Gopher night games. Yes. Yeah, Buckshot Kid. If they make Minnesota in November for a night game, that's when the temperature will be above normal. Yeah, and that wouldn't be any fun. But you're right, Buckshot Kid. That'll probably happen. No question about it. Conundrum, Floyd can't find Minnesota on a map.
Call from
Eric.
Eric, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, good sir.
Hey, how's it going, my friend?
Good. Real good.
Good Sunday to you, and hope you and the little general are both doing really well. We get a lot of the snowbirds out here in Mesquite from Minnesota, and from personal experience with them and from being in Chicago, I will tell you, you're 100% right. The Rocky Mountains get cold, but it ain't nothing like Midwestern cold. Sometimes it can get 40, 50 below zero.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you all in Minnesota play in a indoor stadium, right?
No, we have an outdoor stadium, Huntington Bank Stadium. It's
an
outdoor
wow.
stadium. Yeah, but we are the one stadium in the country that have heating coils underneath the ground, so our turf doesn't get frozen.
Oh, you'll need it. I had friends from Chicago, which is kind of similar, I'm guessing, where they told me they literally have to go outside in the winter sometimes with no exposed skin if they're out for any length.
Yeah, well, again, Chicago gets cold. They have a lot of wind, right, off of Lake Michigan. But again, Chicago's not like Minnesota.
So Minnesota's even colder. I apologize. I assumed for some reason that you played in the same indoor stadium that the Vikings played in, but
no. We have our own stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. It holds 50,000, which is the correct size for us. But it's a beautiful stadium. I know Wisconsin is now trying to get heating. They're going to buy some heating coils to put under their turf because in playoff weather, they might want to have that. Because here's the thing. When historically cold weather teams that practice and are living their lives in cold weather, there's advantage in playing cold weather versus a non-cold weather team, right? But when the turf gets frozen, nobody has an advantage. So
exactly. And Minnesota should definitely use whatever advantage God gives them. I know we use elevation to our advantage, so you darn well should use the cold to yours. You absolutely should.
Yeah.
The question I have for you, maybe you can explain this to me because I know you know this better than I do. I'm a little bit confused, to change topics a little bit. I'm a little bit confused on the college playoff championship. When they say automatic qualifiers, are those conference champions or just the conference picks the team that's the qualifier, or how's that going to work?
No. So in the college football playoffs of 12 teams, there's going to be 6 automatic qualifiers. Those are the 6 top-ranked conference champions. Of the 10 FBS conferences, the top 6 of them, 6 ranked champions, after they're done with their conference championship games, those schools get an automatic bid to the tournament. So last year, Tulane was one of the top 6 conference champions, but they were not ranked one of the top 12 teams. But they would have gotten an automatic berth into the college football playoffs because they were a conference champion and they were one of the top 6. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for those saying that, schools are going to want to stay in weaker conferences to get an easier run at the championship, that's not necessarily true because if your schedule's too weak, you might not be one of the top 6 ranked champions.
Yeah, I mean, there is some validity to that. I mean, there is some truth to that. But the problem is the conference, the college football playoffs, the way they are constructed is only for 2024 and 2025. We do not know what 2026 is going to look like. So, There could be no automatic qualifiers for conference champions in 2026. We just don't know. So that's why and there's a lot of other reasons why that's really not on the minds of the presidents and ADs. They want to get to the best spot possible for the university, for the front porch of the universities, and for the student athletes, and for their supporters, and for their boosters. That is all way higher on their criteria list than where it is easiest to win a conference championship in football.
So are you thinking this information that came out today about Mr. Warren makes it much, much more likely, almost a fait accompli, that the PAC is going to take Oregon, or the Oregon-Washington's going to be going to the Big Ten? It sounds like everyone's kind of talking like they think it's kind of a done deal.
Well, no, it's not a done deal. Now, there's been nobody more consistent in trying to give everybody a peek around the corner that the Big Ten wants Washington and Oregon, right? I've been saying that for months and months and months. And it wasn't just Kevin Warren who wanted them. Big Ten understands they're going to want to go east. If they're going to go east to expand, they're going to want to go west again. We have been, there's been nobody louder and more consistent and strong on that issue than us. But that doesn't mean it's a fait accompli, that it gets done here in the next 5 months or in the next year. It might have to wait 5 years because there are other hurdles that are in the way for Big Ten expansion. What we've made it clear at Peek Around the Corner, Eric, is that Kevin Warren was the number one hurdle. Like, everything else could have been correct behind him. Everything could have been laid out perfectly. But with Kevin Warren in the chair, it wasn't going to happen. And I think people now understand that, right? After reading this article. But it's not a fait accompli. It's not. It's President Carter came out and said a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to be difficult to get Washington and Oregon to sign a Pac-12 deal, but Big Ten might communicate to those schools directly or back channel saying, you know what, it just isn't going to work for us here right now. But in the future, if it doesn't happen now, we strongly believe at Peek Around the Corner, strongly believe it will happen in the not too distant future. Nothing's a fait accompli. Nothing's a fait accompli.
Kind of to change gears a little bit, I got one more question for you. You remember, I'm thinking, I lost for his name, and I absolutely love this college coach. It's Mike, the coach who just passed away from Mississippi.
Mike Leach.
Mike Leach did an interview not long before he passed where he's talking about the whole idea of the college athlete being professional and getting some of the benefits of the professional athlete. And I thought he made a really good point. He said, I don't have a problem with the NIL. I don't have a problem with the guys transferring and stuff. He goes, my issue is it seems like they want the benefits of a pro athlete, but they want also all the benefits of being an amateur and a college athlete.
Yeah.
And his basic point of his article was, at some point, if they're going to do it that way, they're going to have to take the good with the bad, and that means that they're going to have to be treated more like a professional athlete. They're not going to be able to have it both ways. So my question for you is, at some point, if they determine that they're an employee, I know the one guy was saying Title IX, the ladies are going to get their benefits too, but at some point, if they're treated like employee corporation, a corporation has a fiduciary duty to make a profit. So at some point, can they legally say, well, they're employees now, they're not college students, so Title IX doesn't apply. And because college football financially supports about 80% of the other sports, do they have a right as a business at some point to say, look, you have to be able to make a profit as an employee. You have to be able to make it in the open market. And if you're not making it in the open market, we'll still have your sports, but it'll be more on an intramural level. And you have to be self-supportive. And oh, by the way, if you're not making money for the employer, we have a right to cut your scholarships and stuff like that anytime we want. And you have to sign a contract. If you're an employee, you have to sign a contract to be here for so long, you can't just move whenever you want to. What do you think about those issues?
Well, I think collective bargaining agreement. Student athletes get representation. The conferences and schools get representation. You get a collective bargaining agreement. Everything is on the table. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. You can get out. Player option, team option. That's all part of recruiting. NIL, health benefits. When can you cut a student athlete? All those things will be negotiated. But the student athletes need to be represented, and the conferences and the schools need to look out for the health of the game to make some of it at least plausible competitiveness among the schools. You're not going to be like the NFL. You're not going to have drafts. You're not going to have a salary cap, but pretty much everything else would be on the table. But you can't, all those issues, it's got to be inside of a CBA.
My biggest worry is I think if you're a big star, you're the top 10% of college basketball or college football, you're going to benefit greatly. But I think overall, thousands of your very average athletes in very average sports are actually going to be worse off than they were as college athletes. Just look at the transfer portal. Probably 60-70% of the people don't even get picked up, and that's an unreported story.
There's going to be good and bad with it. No question about it. It's going to be adjusted over the years. There's a lot to it, just like professional sports. There's a lot to it. But again, everyone's going to be represented, and they're going to be up at the table. It's all going to be negotiated, and that CBA will change over the years. Things will be adjusted. But thanks for your call, Eric. Got a lot of other calls on the line here.
You bet. Thanks for your time, and you have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good, sir. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Call from
Tim.
Tim is on the line. The floor is yours, good sir.
How you doing today? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
Second-time caller. I wanted to talk about something in realignment that's kind of tied into the Big 12 and Pac-12, and that was the article with Ross Dellinger. You may have discussed it a little bit previously on a live.
Sure, yep.
It has to do with UConn to the Big 12.
Yes.
So I live in Connecticut.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a UConn fan.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised, but about 50% of the fans don't want to go. There's
Am
about half the fan base
Yep.
that would prefer to stay in the Big East.
Yep.
And I think one of the reasons for this is, we found our happy medium.
Yeah.
But I do think that going to the Big 12, it's not even about the money, because I think the increased revenue would be – some of it would go away with the extra travel, the extra spending on coaches, potentially bringing back the sports that they've dropped. But it's just getting into the next level of college football with a chance in the future. A chance, not a big chance, but a chance to move to like the Big Ten, should that league expand to 24 to 28 schools, down the road in 10 to 15 years. And if the Big Ten and SEC, leave the NCAA at some point, which is not impossible, UConn doesn't want to be left out. And, UConn has probably one of the most toxic fan bases in the country. The football fans hate the basketball fans, and vice versa. Which is pretty unusual.
Yeah. Minnesota has a little bit of that between the hockey fans and football fans as well. So I get it.
But
yeah.
But the thing is, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. I still think the Pac-12 is going to stay together. I think there's a chance things could fall apart, but I think as long as they get a TV deal somewhere in the $25 million a year range, and the visibility is at least 50% linear, they'll probably stick together. It'll be a little embarrassing, but I don't think Arizona and Colorado really want to muck it with the Big 12 schools if they don't have to. And as long as that happens, it sounds to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like Yormark really is just hell-bent on expansion no matter what happens.
Yeah,
If that's the case, it sounds like it's coming down to UConn, UNLV, and Memphis. And then at that point, you just got to beat out one other school. So I don't know what your thoughts are on what might happen there.
well, first of all, I completely understand why UConn, 50% of the fan base doesn't want to do it. 50% of the fans do want to do it. Big 12 is not the AAC. So some UConn fans, I think the whole AAC experience, I should say, kind of has taken the juice out of them for wanting to go to the Big 12. But it's not the same. AAC and the Big 12 are not the same. UConn going all over the country to play the Big 12 is not the same as going all over the place and playing the AAC. I think UConn, if I was them, if they'd give me a call, I would say, if the invitation is there as full member, all sports, you got to take it. You got to take it. You got to jump over that wall if you get a chance. Because the college football playoff money alone, the playoff expansion for a Power 5 school, it's going to be more money than UConn will make in 3 years in the Big East. So UConn has to do it. Economically, financially, that school loses $40-50 million a year in the athletic department, correct?
Yeah, it's about
So
$50 million. Although most years it'll be 35.
Okay, 35 million, 40. And you don't know what the future is going to be with these Power 5 programs with basketball. You don't know if they're going to separate from the G5 schools. They probably won't separate from the Big East, but you get my point. You got to jump over the wall. The interest is legit. It's absolutely legit. We talked about it before that athletic article came out here at Peek Around the Corner. So that's where I'm at.
It's legit that the SEC and the Big Ten in the future, let's see they expand at some point.
I don't think UConn is a future Big Ten expansion.
Well, not UConn. I'm just saying, do you think the SEC and the Big Ten will break away from the NCAA?
Is there a chance? Yes. Could it happen years and years from now? Yes. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime. I don't think it's going to happen in this 2026 gold rush scenario that we talk about at Peek Around the Corner, where we don't know what the playoffs are going to look like in 2026 and beyond. I don't believe the SEC and the Big Ten are going to break off as a 48 school at that moment. Maybe in the mid 230s, we'll see. But I don't think it's anything that's going to happen right now. I hope it doesn't happen, but I also truly do not believe it's going to happen for 2026. There's so much change. There's so much change going on right now, and there are things going to happen that we can't even conceive right now. So I don't want to say it's absolutely no chance, but I don't think that's something that anyone wants to take on. There's a lot of changes going on, and I think there's going to be a 4 power teams. Of course, SEC and the Big Ten are going to be financially ahead of the other two, but I think there's going to be 4 Power 4 autonomy conferences going forward. I know some people say 3. Of course, some people say 2 right away. I think there's going to be 4. So that's what I think on it.
Do you think the lawsuits aimed at USC are going to affect schools keeping football and having to pay the insurance claims?
So you're talking about the bill out there in California?
Correct.
I don't know. I mean, we did an article on that, or an episode on that months ago. I shouldn't say months ago, maybe 2 months ago. I don't know. Good question. I don't have an answer.
All right. Well, thanks for this time.
Yep. Thanks. Great call. Excellent.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Let's see where that bill ends up. And there's so many variables to that. I don't know. There's a lot of different bills that have been created in the legislative branch of California and they haven't gone through the whole thing where the governor signs it, so we'll see.
Call from
JB.
JB, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling again, good sir.
Not a problem. How you doing, my man?
Doing okay. Doing a little bit of Sunday night PATC action.
Yes, I see. That's good. Belated congrats to your parents, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
I did not know that, and I supported Kevin Warren through the COVID decision because I knew that was not his call. That was the president's call, and he was the lackey that had to inform the world that that's what was going to happen. But I didn't. None of us knew that he was going to leave the conference in shambles.
Yeah.
As the way he did. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he negotiated big money for him.
Yeah.
But then he left a mess.
Yeah.
You keep stating that Kevin was for more teams, but
Yeah.
he was also the hurdle. How was he the hurdle?
He was the hurdle because no one was going to do any more business with Kevin Warren when it comes to more expansion. Fox Sports said, nah, we're not doing it. Big Ten presidents didn't trust him. So, yeah, there were people in the Big Ten who agreed with some of his vision, most of his vision. Look, you just saw what Ted Carter said of the president of Nebraska. Big Ten understands what's happening here. More consolidation, bigger super conferences, making more of the decisions, better opportunity for the student athletes, being a more of a national conference, higher compensation for the student athletes, on and on and on and on. They agreed with a lot of Kevin Warren was saying. They were talking with Kevin Warren about his vision, but they weren't going to do any more expansion with Kevin Warren in the seat. And we said it. Yep, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it makes sense since you said that now, so I appreciate that. Jim Phillips, the leader, the commissioner of the ACC, he was twice a candidate for the Big Ten commissionership and didn't get it. So if I was ACC people, I would maybe be a little worried about that.
Yeah.
In the sense of where his shortcomings.
Yeah.
So that's just something for you pro ACC people to think about. As far as giving more ACC schools more money than others, remember that's what led to Texas A&M and Missouri and Colorado leaving the Big 12. So be easy with even discussing that because that's what. Eventually somebody's going to get their nose out of joint and say, hey, why are they getting more money than us? And then you're going to have that situation.
Yeah.
Lastly, Greg, I want to apologize for you for blowing people's minds about paying athletes, even though I know it's coming.
Yeah.
Because instantly people want to go to, or can they be cut or can they be fired? This, that, and the other. You are 100% correct. It'll be bargained.
Yep.
The kids will have contracts.
Yep.
And the kids will lose some things too.
Yep.
Like they're gonna have to pay taxes, which they're doing with NIL money now anyway, and that's why Northwestern didn't vote for it 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And they may lose other things like maybe some of the free swag that they get and whatnot, because these schools are going to have to protect themselves also.
Yes.
And but they won't be able to cut those kids because they'll be under contract unless the kid does something detrimental to their contract, like flunk out or maybe it's an accessory to murder. Like it's some other school.
It's going to be difficult to cut them, but it's also they know they're not going to be going in the transfer portal unless that individual, that student athlete, that football player, it says in his contract after 1 year or 2 years, I can have a player option. I can go in the transfer portal. That will be part of the negotiations between him and his university or conference. So
and then my truly last thing, I heard you guys discussing about frozen fields and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember when the Vikings played at TCF Bank, they put in heated undersurface.
Yes,
So
still there.
the field is right. The field is still heated and it's still there. So
Yes.
California kids will be fine.
Yeah,
They'll
California.
just freak
Yeah,
out.
you're not going to be playing in a frozen tundra in Minnesota. And Wisconsin's
Nope.
getting the same thing done. Because like I said, JB, the cold weather teams have an advantage. They're going to have an advantage, a little bit of advantage over the California teams, right? In the cold weather, the wind, the winter. But if it's a frozen field, suddenly all advantages are lost. Because frozen field doesn't help anybody, even the cold weather teams. So Minnesota's making sure, Wisconsin, there's a playable field.
Yeah, and people also remember with Oregon, the power of the swoosh is out there too. So don't forget that either.
Yeah, and he's been wielding it. So
Yes, he has.
yeah.
All right, Greg.
Beautiful.
You have a good night.
Thanks. Great call, JB. Great call from JB once again. Jay Puremutter, Mr. UCLA Bruin with a super chat. Thank you so much, good sir. I know I mispronounced your name. I mispronounced a lot of names. I hope you don't take it personally. Maybe someday I'll say it correctly, just out of happenstance. Just maybe I get lucky. Thank you, Jay, so much for your generosity to this channel. UCLA, your Bruins against the Gophers. 2024, second week in November, Huntington Bank Stadium, primetime NBC. I'm gonna get it done. That game is going to happen. Although the Big Ten don't like me, so it's probably not going to happen.
Call from
Steve.
Steve is on the line. Look out. Steve's got the floor. Thanks for calling, good sir.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good, sir.
Good. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for the games to begin.
Yes. Steve, what fan are you?
Bearcat, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Okay.
Both of my sons attended UC. So.
Got it.
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
Yeah. I live here in northwestern Ohio amongst the Michigan fans and the Ohio State fans and some Notre Dame fans.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm one of the few Bearcats around this area actually. But anyhow, I do winter in Florida, so I got to put up with all the Florida State haters.
Yeah.
Nice, but anyhow.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm looking at this from.
Yes, sir. I think we lost you, Steve. Call back, Steve. I think you hung up on us. Let's see here. Jay, for those who hope Big Ten wants to add Oregon and Washington, could this be a reason why it hasn't happened yet? They want to sort out this mess before they go and add more schools? Or Oregon, Washington could be the solution? It's hard to say. There's a lot of reasons why the Oregon-Washington thing hasn't happened. And we've gone through all those reasons. There's still hurdles for it to happen. Timing right now and the money. I mean, my goodness. These athletic directors, Big Ten, they're already losing a few million that they thought they were going to get for their budget. Right? They're already $2, $3, $4 million down. Every year, 6 years, that's 24, 25 million dollars you just lost. So that means an addition of Oregon and Washington, you're gonna have to make that up, plus how much more each Big Ten school would need because of the added slices that are coming into the pie, 16 to 18. So I know some look, at first blush, this looks like something that Oregon and Washington would help the Big Ten in scheduling. Not just about NBC primetime games, but a whole lot of other issues when it comes to Big Ten scheduling. Have 4 Western teams on the West Coast. We've gone through it before. You can get the scheduling done for the Big Ten just like that with an 18-school conference. Washington, Oregon, USC are the 3 permanent rivals among themselves. Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, those 4 teams, they're the permanent rivals among themselves. Northwestern, Illinois, Purdue, Indiana, those 4 teams are the permanent rivals among themselves, the 3. Then the other 6 teams, you can figure it out. It's pretty easy who would get who and 3 permanent rivals out on the East, Big Ten East. They would solve a lot of issues, but the money's got to be there.
Call from
Monavision.
Monavision is in the house, Mr. Buckeye. The floor is yours, good sir.
Well, good evening, Greg. Quite the cluster F that Kevin Warren left us with.
Yes.
But I believe this makes it imperative to add Oregon and Washington. Those November late night games are going to have to be filled.
Yes.
And the reason I see some people say, well, it's a mild winter and mild in November in Big Ten country. The weather in Columbus is usually not mild in November. It's rainy, it's cold, it's windy, and it leads to injuries.
But you're going to be playing a playoff game in Columbus, aren't you?
Eventually, once they winterize the stadium.
Okay. All right.
What they're talking about now is Cleveland Browns are going to do an update on their stadium, and they're going to possibly play in Ohio Stadium while that's being done, and they're going to split the cost to winterize, which is good for Ohio State because it's they have to pay 50% of it, and they're going to use it moving forward. But the other option is you could go to a neutral site game, but I don't think any teams want to give up a home game to go play in Indianapolis in the Lucas Dome or up in Detroit at the Ford Field. So I think it's important that we do add Oregon and Washington to resolve that issue. And we might actually have to take a little less payout from schools to do it, to kind of try and patch up what Kevin Warren messed up. And I would even go so far as to say the Big Ten might move and grab those 2 before anybody else moves at this point. I know there's legal issues, but Oregon and Washington did reach out to the Big Ten first. So it's not like there's any tortuous interference. That's, they reached out right after USC and UCLA announced they were leaving. So I know Pac-10 fans have this, at least in their viewpoint, that we're poaching schools. We're not poaching schools. They're coming to us because the leadership of the Pac-12 conference has done such a poor job at managing their brands.
Over the last 20 years.
Yes, yeah. It's poor leadership. Larry Scott. I don't put a lot of the blame on George Kliavkoff. He hasn't been there long enough. But definitely Larry Scott and even before that. And I found it interesting that article was released today, less than 24 hours after the Nebraska president's comments, by ESPN, the only family of networks that doesn't carry the Big Ten. It definitely had a very anti-Big Ten bend to it. It also seemed rather short, like it was rushed out. I liked Pete Thamel's writing, but I think reading some of his other articles are much longer and more in depth. This did seem like a rushed piece. I know maybe I put the tinfoil cap on for that one.
No, I had somebody serious in the game. Let's just put it that way. Who mentioned the same thing? But I'm not gonna a lot of the article's true though, so that's
right,
what I
right. No,
yeah,
I'm not.
yeah
Yeah, I'm not denying that there's truth to that article, but
yeah
compared to the articles Pete Thamel usually writes, it's much shorter. You can tell that there's parts of the narrative missing.
yes
You know, and it's rushed out like right after those comments from the Nebraska president, which just seems a little odd to me.
Yeah.
I mean, they're allowed to write whatever they want to write.
Yeah.
But I'm also allowed, clearly done, to offset what the Big Ten has done because the Big Ten is no longer on your networks.
Yeah.
To make a hit piece and make it look like the Big Ten is completely incompetent when it was just the one guy we had running it that was completely incompetent.
Yeah.
And I will say this, the one thing I didn't like is the Big Ten presidents should never have let him just sunset himself into the Chicago Bears job.
Yeah.
If they knew that was going on, they should have fired him. I understand there was probably a payout for them doing that.
Yeah.
But they should have just done that.
And that has been, I'll just say without unveiling too much, that was at the end of the day that was almost impossible to do because there has been so much turnover in the Big Ten presidents' jobs in the conference. So that's also been going on. There's been such an influx of new people coming in to represent these universities that hurt that cause of possibly getting rid of Kevin Warren.
Right. And it didn't mention in the article whether or not he actually got paid that bonus. It just said they had to bring a firm in to see if he got paid that bonus.
I think it might be unresolved. I didn't want to go through that part, but
Right. But if they didn't, I'd like to see the Big Ten try and go get some of that bonus back because obviously what we were sold was not what we got. So, and before I go, I just want to give a shout out to the Penn State. I think it's really impressive that Penn State and Ohio State picked up, said, hey, this is messed up, but we'll go ahead and do our part. That's showing good leadership in the Big Ten, which I think is important from our big brands.
Yeah, they make concessions.
I would like to see, I'd like to see Michigan step up and do something as well, but Michigan's going to Michigan. So,
and let's be honest. Let's be honest. You guys are afraid to play Minnesota, NBC, primetime at Huntington Bank Stadium, baby. That's what you guys are afraid of. That's what this whole thing is all about. Afraid of the Golden Gophers.
Sure, we'll go with that, Greg, if that makes you happy. We're terrified of those Gopher greats. So,
yes.
But all right, I'll get off here and let somebody else get on here and put their ideas out there. But I just wanted to say that's what I'm thinking we're leaning towards. It seems too obvious to me now not to do that.
Got it. All right. Monavision has come in and said, Oregon, Washington, it makes too much sense for it not to happen. Thank you, Monavision. Appreciate it. Thank you, Will the Thrill. Ooh, I love that handle. Will the Thrill. Thanks for everything. Saludos a la Generos Chiquita. Thank you so much, Will the Thrill. I appreciate the super chat. Appreciate your generosity. Thanks for coming on in at Peek Around the Corner that we sit in the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue.
Wild Ute.
Wild Ute is in the house. Mr. Utah man. Let's go. The floor is yours, good sir. How you doing?
Doing well. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, so this one's to Monavision. Okay, I just listened to what he had to say.
Yes.
The Big Ten did poach out of the Pac, and they're poaching right now. So I think that we need to be honest, really, what's going on right here.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Like, the blood is on the Big Ten's hands.
Yes.
Like,
it's
don't
all
try
over
to
the
ignore
place.
that.
Yes.
Like,
Go after that Buckeye.
No, I got the serious. It's like Big Ten fans don't really realize that they've actually taken out the Pac. Like UCLA, USC. I mean, did you know that the Pac contract with those teams in conference still was supposed to be around $50 million or more? We'd be right on the Big Ten's heels. This contract. Like seriously, we'd be right there. We're right in the game. And keep in mind, the Big Ten and the Pac were brothers, Rose Bowl brothers in arms for years and years. And Big Ten poached USC and UCLA. It's the Big Ten's fault.
Yes.
Ten's going after Oregon and Washington right now. And there's no way the Pac can sign a TV deal until that's all done, or the Big Ten says, no, we're not going to go after Oregon or Washington anymore. It's on the Big Ten's hands. It's the Big Ten, Big Ten, Big Ten. The Big Ten is the bad guy in this situation from a Pac fan's perspective.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sick of hearing this apology.
I agree with you.
Yeah, guys, you're like, Wildview doesn't understand business and stuff. I completely understand business. It's a good business play and stuff, but the blood's still on your hands.
Yes, the blood
own
is
it
there.
At least, right?
No question about it. No question about it.
So anyway, Greg, that's all I had to say
No,
tonight.
but wait a second. Blood is all over the floor. I understand. But what if here at Peek Around the Corner, what if it happens? President Carter, Nebraska's president, says, we got to figure out how big we're going to get. We could go up, maybe it's 4 Pac-12 schools. What if one of those Pac-12 schools is Utah? Utah, Stanford, Oregon, and Washington. There's a 16 Pacific Coast division within the 24-team Big Ten Conference. What if Utah's in there? AAU. They fill up their football stadium. They're a research university. They're a growing state. The fan base is absolutely engaged. Big Ten Network would sell like hotcakes in the state of Utah. What if that happens? Then what about the blood, Wild Dude? What about the blood?
Greg, let's go back before USC and UCLA was poached.
Oh.
I would rather, with USC and UCLA, I would have rather had that Pac-12 around than go to the Big Ten. As a Ute fan, but now that the blood's been spilled and it's half gone, yeah, the Big Ten's a great landing spot. And the Big Ten, yay, Big Ten, everyone wants to go because it's great. Because you guys totally screwed us.
You're right. Okay.
And that's how a Pac fan sees it and stuff.
Yep.
And Utah would jump over to the Big Ten in a second. It'd be a great play.
Yeah.
But really, I just want people to be honest about really what's going on. The Big Ten took out the Pac, and they're taking out the Pac, and they can save the Pac if they just call off the dogs. But they have to call off the dogs for the Pac to do anything. And they might. And a lot of it has to do what's going to happen with Colorado. They're in the middle of the stage. I think, you know what? I'll make the announcement right now here at Peek Around the Corner. We have lowered. It's no longer a 6.5 point favorite that the Pac-12 is going to get poached again. We're going to bring it down to a 5.5 point favorite. Tonight, 1 point drop. Next week, we're going to drop it to 4.5. The week after that, we're going to drop it to 3.5, maybe to 2.5. Because the longer we get away from the hot bubble of action when the Pac-12 got punched in the solar plexus, I've seen the question in the comments section. We are going to talk about that event when I can talk about it. And we have all the details here at Peek Around the Corner. The longer it goes away from that punch in the solar plexus, the longer that the Pac-12 keeps hanging together by a thread. Each and every week, the odds go down that the Pac-12 is going to get poached. I know we're the opposite of other people, John Wilner, but we have our reasons. We're going to explain it. So the Pac-12 still hanging in there, but to get back to Wild Oots' comment, a lot of it has to do with Colorado, to be honest with you. Because if they pull the thread, if they go to the Big 12, then things are going to get a little bit more spicy. Definitely so.
Yeah.
Excited to see what happens. Thanks for letting me call in, Greg.
You got it. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Great call. Jeff Olson, good friend of mine. He's an evil Badger. Let me tell you something, Mr. Jeff Olson. Let me tell you something. The Gophers have won the Axe 2 years in a row for the first time since 1993-94. We've got Athan Kalikakamanis, the Greek Rifle. What do you got? You got Mordecai, who's never played in a Power 5 conference before. He looked brutal in a spring game. Bring it, Mr. Olson. Bring it.
Immaculate.
Immaculate is in the house. Brian, the floor is yours.
Had to call back in and defend the Big Ten a little bit, if you don't mind.
All right, all right.
I think people may have forgotten, as if, you know, history is only 2 to 3 years ago, and it doesn't go back farther than that. You probably remember, but there was a certain alliance that was out there, and the idea was that the Big 12 was going to get parceled out between 3 conferences, and one of those conferences decided to jump the gun and go take the absolute best powers that were in the Big 12 all by themselves. And it ended up going very badly for them, even to the point where the Texas AD came out and said exactly why they turned down the Pac. And that killed the Pac. That did it right there. It wasn't the Big 10, anything else other than the Pac jumped the gun and tried to go all on their own because they realized they were probably only going to get some of the smaller schools. And it goes back to that. It just does. I feel bad for Pac folks, but to sit here now and be like, oh, we're the victims. No, I'm sorry. Your conference jumped out of the alliance. So no one can talk about the alliance. No one can bring that up and say that the Big Ten's doing them dirty. It just broke down, and then that's why the SEC and the Big 12 got together and created their own little alliance on it, and then all of that broke down. But that's, I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's the history that I remember.
Yeah, I understand it from a lot of different angles here. I want to try to be Switzerland on this channel. I get it. I get it. You know, look, it's hard for me because, you know, March 31st in 2022, I get this phone call and we knew things were on its way, right? And
yeah.
I put it out there for 3 months. It was this whole dramatic thing. Then it happened. And so it's hard for me to put myself in other people's shoes because I was living it daily when people were completely didn't know what was going on. And when I put it out there, I just got thrashed by almost everybody. Websites, message boards, but we knew what was going on. And it's hard, so it's really hard for me to get back into that blood is on the hands of this or that. The truth of the matter is USC did the same thing. USC and UCLA, but at the time we only knew of USC. They made the same decisions that Texas and Oklahoma made. So USC was going to jump on in. And when they made that call, there was so much action behind the scenes to make sure Kevin Warren didn't screw it up. And I was used as part of that action. So Big Ten was going to... USC called the Big Ten. In this new world of college football, USC felt they had to do it. They're going to be proven right. Big Ten had to take them. They were going to be proven right. So yes, the Big Ten are the evil people in this. But again, it was USC's phone call that made this all start to happen. So,
Here's the thing, it's like looking at a table full of poker players who are all playing a game of poker, and looking at one of them going, "You're the evil guy." No, he just beat you with his hand. Because everyone was trying to do the same thing.
513 Bearcat says Big Ten could have said no to USC. Wow.
Why?
I suppose in theory they could have said no, but Yeah, you don't say no to USC. You just don't. You don't say no to the opportunities of getting the city of Los Angeles. Fox Sports would not allow for anybody to say no. Fox Sports wanted Los Angeles. You have to remember, ESPN just took Texas and Oklahoma away from Fox Sports. That's just happened previously. So now Fox Sports comes in and says, Los Angeles, ESPN, you don't get it anymore. So there's a lot of things at play during all of that. So Fox Sports is the evil one. ESPN was the evil one previous to Fox Sports, and on and on and on we go.
Yeah, and there's a lot of history there, so there's some understanding as to why folks feel bad about that. But in all honesty, if we're going to talk about the Rose Bowl, we're only playing that every other year against each other, and now with the 12-team situation coming up, that's done. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
The relationship between the conferences is over, and they wanted to come over. It's like you're saying, it's just business. I don't know what to tell folks to feel bad about it. I mean, in the end, a conference is really just a collection of schools, and when some of those schools don't want to be part of that collection anymore, it's not someone else's fault. Like, they tried to do the big hit. They tried to get Texas and Oklahoma because they knew they were in a weaker position, and they were probably going to have to settle for some lesser ones. I don't blame them for doing that. I don't look and go, you guys are assholes for going against the alliance and doing that. It's just what they tried to do, and it went bad, and now they're still dealing with that. Like folks need to realize, like, this is a long played out process. And 2015 with the Power 5 votes, that just sped it up. But it's still part of this whole storyline going on. So, I mean, that's tough. I have to ask you something, though, since you were a part of that so much.
Yeah.
I know you can't go into specifics, but was UCLA really the first pick to go with USC?
Yes, we believe so. Yep. Now, you got to understand something. We didn't know UCLA was even in the process through all those months. We were not leaked that information. We were leaked USC +1. We had no idea about UCLA. I never mentioned, I didn't, there might have been a couple times I speculated, but I definitely did not report anything but USC. The fact of the matter is that all these Pac-12 schools called the Big Ten in 2021, and the Big Ten wasn't ready to do anything at that point. Yeah. In 2022, in the spring, USC called. UCLA called. They called alone. Washington didn't call the Big Ten. Oregon did not call the Big Ten. They were completely shocked by it. They were not, so there was no other number one choice because they weren't even talking to the Big Ten. And the Big Ten and realignment starts with the school calling the conference first, as you all know. So, yeah, of the schools that called, plus Fox Sports stepped in and said, we want all of Los Angeles. We want UCLA. So, I don't buy that a different second choice. I'm not buying it. I'm willing to be. Yeah.
USC stands first, and then something happened to go in the direction of UCLA?
No, they both called separately. They both were part of the package.
All right.
I don't know what, Fox Sports wanted both. When Fox Sports, when a school calls a conference in regards to realignment, the conference goes to their media partners and say, what can we do? When Fox Sports heard that UCLA call, they said, that's game, baby. That's game. We want all of Los Angeles. We want all of Los Angeles. The Big Ten boosters wanted it. Everybody wanted it. Los Angeles, Big Ten country. National advertisers wanted all of Los Angeles. So we think UCLA was number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was just kind of curious about that going on for a while because I kind of heard something else. But
yeah, there was other reports, and I'm not, I'm not saying they're wrong and we're right. We just don't see it any other way. But I'm willing to have my mind changed if what I've read It's not real. To me, it's not real.
Yeah. What I had heard was that Stanford was number 2, but their talks didn't go well. They didn't really want to fully join because of the Big Ten Academic Alliance.
Yeah, we
And then
don't know
after
anything.
that,
I haven't.
wanted
Don't think that's
Washington.
true, but
No, and so it went to UCLA. But
yeah.
that could just be all talk. I mean, it makes sense that the USC-UCLA rivalry is something that Fox would like and all that. So, anyways, I just wanted to call in about the conference thing because I know everyone's looking at this and getting kind of emotional about it, but really, I mean, they got to think about this. This is like a poker game, and these are all players sitting at a table with the hand, and that's really just what it comes down to.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it, man. Good show. I had to look into this article to see what actually, man, Kevin Warren really messed this up, huh?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh. Well, anyways, all right, man. I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Appreciate the call. Now, I've seen comments in the comments section asking, when will I talk about the hot bubble of action that happened first weekend of May? I will talk about it when we get a resolution. If Colorado decides to stick with the Pac-12, then we'll talk about it. When the Pac-12, if the Pac-12 deal gets done, which is going to be a fascinating story, because the deal, whatever it looks like, it's going to be a lot different what the Big 12 has, what the ACC has. It's going to be fascinating to see how it works out. But when that happens, when the Pac-12 deal is signed or Colorado decides to move, we'll talk about it in full detail here at Peek Around the Corner. Yes, sir. I didn't get the name.
Steve.
Oh, Steve, I'm glad you called back. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Bearcat.
The point I was going to get to was I know everybody's looking towards the future, and one of the things they're looking forward to is see what happens by 2026. Well, I think people better look at the present as much as they're looking at 2026 from everything that's happened the last few years, from NIL to portal to UCLA, USC, Texas, Oklahoma. There's going to be more of that. There's got to be more of that for a lot of different reasons. And I just think that if people think the last 3 years have been crazy, I'm telling you what we're about to see here in the next year and a half, because Greg, you know, and I know, and everybody knows that 2025 going into that 2026, there's going to, you know,
lots of money.
Things are going to get, that's when things are going to get hot and heavy.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a conference, whether it's a university, who it is, everybody's got to position themselves to get to the best spot they can get. Yeah. That's why I really, really, really believe the next year and a half is just going to be as crazy as anything could be.
And Steve, when President Ted Carter said what he said, right? President of Nebraska, when he talked about big things are going to happen here in the next year, 2 years, or before that, you know, for him to say that in public, do you know how many times they must be saying that in private? That's not something that you just say as the president. That means this has been Robert J. Jones, the Chancellor of Illinois, say they've been doing a cost-benefit analysis. They've been talking about this for months. They were getting ready for Tony Petitti. Kevin Warren left, Tony Petitti comes in, and these guys, they're talking about it. These gals are talking about it. They're analyzing it. As Steve says, something big is going to happen. Because... go ahead.
I just can't believe it's not going to happen, Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, everything points, my opinion, and from my life experiences, everything points to that.
Yeah.
It just points to the next year and a half being pretty chaotic. And, you know,
buckle up.
Variable.
Yeah.
There's more variables out there than any of us even know. When it comes to the PAC, when it comes to the ACC, when it comes to who wants who, we don't really know.
Yes, you're right.
You know more than anybody, obviously.
Yeah. But that's why I say nothing's a fait accompli early in the show. Yeah.
I don't know that. Here's what I think. I think when the Illinois president comes out or the Nebraska president comes out and they say things like that, obviously they got the blessing of all the other presidents, all the other commissioners, because they've been on a Zoom call or they've been on the phone with each other, and President Carter says, "Hey, I'm busting this out one of these days, okay?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they do it for a reason. They do it to plant a seed.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah. Cloak and dagger. Yeah.
Yep. And the thing with the PAC is they should probably all be quiet right now. You know, the ADs and the I just really think the only guy who shouldn't, and again, like I said a few weeks ago, the only guy who should be talking is Kliakov, and you can't find him with a search warrant, and you can't. You can't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you get so many different narratives from all these guys in the PAC, and you just wonder, are they? It makes you wonder if they're all on the same page. And then you look at the Big Ten, they're all on the same page. They really are. I'm not saying vote-wise they're all on the same page, but they're all on the same page as what we want to do moving forward. And I think you're just going to see craziness. With that, I'll let you go. Have a great evening.
Steve, thanks for calling back again. Appreciate it, sir. Great call. Patrick Baylor, Greg, just wondering what your time frame on the PAC media deal would be revealed if the odds are still against all 10 teams signing the new goal. Yes, but we brought down the odds. 6-point favorite. That's somebody in the Pac-12. I'll get to you in a second here.
Call from
Ryan Thomas?
Ryan Thomas, can you hold just 1 second, sir?
Sure, Greg.
Patrick, so we brought the line down, -6 to -5, that a school will get poached in the Pac-12. Every week that goes by, the Pac-12 survives a hot bubble of action that happened on a certain weekend in May that we're going to talk about in full detail at some point. The better chances for Pac to survive. Here's what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for, ladies and gentlemen. I know we get these reports. We get this lady from Utah. We get this guy from Mercury News. We get this guy from Oregon. We get these reports of the media deal is just right around the corner. It could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. In none of these reports has there been really any detail to them. There's been no meat on the bone. None of these sources seem to be telling these Pac-12 writers really any detail. And when you hear a detail, that means it's getting close. That means there's something there that's already done, buckled up, it's padlocked, it's done. They're going to the next thing. But none of these reports have any meat to them. They're all basically the same thing. Oh, the Pac-12's confident they're going to get a deal. It could be 50% linear. It could be a couple of networks. It could be this. It could be that. But they never say, Ion TV. They're looking good. They get a 12, 13 game package with Pac-12. Or Amazon looking good to get something with the Pac-12. They never really come out with that part of any detail. Which means, to me, it means they don't have a deal. I know there's reports out there. There's been reports for months. Oh, they're just about to get a deal. Until I see just a touch of detail, meat on the bone, I'm going to say they're not close to a deal. But when I see meat on the bone, then I'll say, haha, okay, now we're getting something to it. Because even if the Pac-12 gets a deal, and if they get all 10 schools to sign on it, it's going to be fascinating. It's to see how long it is, who gets the linear package, who gets the streaming package, is there unequal revenue, where are the windows, how long is it going to be, is there any exit hatch from the grant of rights, on and on and on. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be a huge story because this has been going on for so long. It's a roller coaster. Even if they get the deal done, it's going to be a gigantic, massive story. Here, we're going to cover it. We're going to unload on it. We're going to open up the hood. We're going to see what works, what doesn't. That's what we're going to do at Peek Around the Corner. Ryan Thomas, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, Greg, my head's been on a swivel, and I think I have whiplash now.
Got it. All right.
I just wanted to point out, the Pac-12 Big Ten blame game here. Really, I mean, Fox and ESPN, the media partners, are the ones that have been driving these moves. The market's driving it the way it is, and all I had to say is hate the game, don't hate the player. I think that it's just, that's just the direction we're going. And these universities, when they get certain money that comes in, there's certain things that are earmarked for, for certain projects, and they need to pay bills. And athletics is one way that they do that, and it's a front porch and getting attention and getting students and everything. And ultimately, the schools are going to gravitate towards the money, and that's just how it is. But anyway, I'm just thinking here, from the Alliance, the three brain masterminds of the Alliance, George Kliakoff, Kevin Warren, and Jim Phillips, they all are the Three Stooges, Greg. I mean, I've never seen a bigger collection of incompetent morons in my life.
I don't put Phillips in that same with the other two, but go ahead.
He's pretty.
He doesn't have any cards to play, Phillips. So he's trying to keep everything together. But go ahead.
That's fair enough. But I read that ESPN article, and
yes,
man, I didn't doubt you on Warren being a hurdle to expansion, but I totally understand now, because how the heck could you trust that guy on anything? He likely any expansion with West Coast teams, he probably would have made promises that he couldn't make, and wrote checks he couldn't cash, and he would have just screwed it up. It's just kind of I'm just amazed, Greg, that luckily the Big Ten is kind of like a golden goose that keeps laying eggs, and it's never going to really hurt financially. So, it'll be fine. But, man, I can see why – I totally understand why he was a hurdle to expansion now. That guy, you can't trust anything that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
So that's got to be tremendously frustrating. And, I'm sure that, USC and UCLA happened because that was just, too good of an opportunity. But I see now it makes – everything that you said over the past year, Greg – makes perfect sense to me now with this story. Not that I didn't believe you, but it's just...
I understand.
But
I
it makes
understand.
perfect sense to me.
It was very difficult. It was very difficult for me to even tell the story last spring when it was happening, why it was happening. It was hard for me to talk to explain it to Brady McCullough at Los Angeles Times. It's been very difficult to explain it here at YouTube channel. That's why we did the YouTube channel, because it was impossible to have any decent conversations on Twitter. So we had to create this channel and to really get nuanced, deep dive into this, because the whole Kevin Warren thing, even with the USC thing, it was a minefield, no trust.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, it just makes sense now. And he's gone, and Petiti, this guy seemed like he's, this guy seems like he's got his act together, and he's a smart guy, and he'll get things figured out. And I think it's just a matter of time before Oregon and Washington come in. And like I said, I'm with you on this. I know people disagree with me, and that's fine. We can disagree here. We're all free to do that. All free to have a different opinion. But I like I said, I don't think Stanford's turning down a Big Ten invite. I mean, I know people can respectfully disagree, and that's fine. I respect you guys' opinion on that. But I think that Oregon, Washington, and Stanford are the three, and maybe, like I said, they try to get Notre Dame as number 20, and they have, 4 or 5 team pods, and then wait for the ACC to implode. But I think, and it might implode if Notre Dame leaves. So I think the ACC has a shelf life at best, Greg, till 2031. And the reason why I say that is when the Big Ten deal comes up in 2030, it's a 7-year deal.
Yeah.
So, it starts. So when it comes up in 2030, 2029 or whatever, so maybe it's 2030 the shelf life. But people need to remember that that's, 6 or 7 years off of the grant of rights. So, for each year that passes, whatever money it costs to get out of that becomes less and less. So, and you look at the growth of these TV deals, and, people, the TV deal that expired last year for the Big Ten was paying out about $34.9 million per school, I believe, on average in that old deal. And now, it went up to $72 million on average. Now, I know that there could be some changes on that because of that article, but I mean, that's a 100% increase, Greg. I mean, these media rights, if the Big Ten, if you're getting if the Big Ten and the next deal that it negotiates starting in 2030, if the Big Ten is getting around, $140 million media money, and let's say, maybe because of playoffs and other things, $60 million. If schools are getting $200 million payouts, which isn't that far away, it's not that improbable. I mean, it's a big number, and people think it's crazy. But 7 years from now, that doesn't seem that improbable to me. And with that type of payout, you have to stop and think. That makes it pretty easy to do a settlement with any ACC teams you're battling on. I mean, I think that there's no way that they stay till 2036 with this grant of rights. I just don't see it.
No, I don't either.
I think there will come a point, whether Notre Dame jumps or not, there will come a point, in 6 or 7 years from now, that the money that they can get by going to the Big Ten or SEC at that time period, I mean, keep in mind that ACC money, that $17 million per school for Tier 1 rights, is the same. That's the same. For the next 13 years, and that's paltry compared to what you can make. And if people start cutting the cord, that could hurt the ACC network and things like that. And it's just kind of I think that $32, $34, $35 million, that's not, that doesn't become such a big deal when you're getting that kind of money coming in. And, these things tend to get settled because nobody wants to take a grant of rights to court. Nobody wants to take it. I mean, there's a reason why the Big 12 and Texas and Oklahoma settled for what they did. And I think that likely this happens one of two ways. I don't think it'll go to the court. I think it's more likely that there's some sort of settlement. And I think that the latest, I would be shocked if that happened. I would be shocked if that didn't happen by 2030. I think at that point, just the money that would be out there is too large, that it makes it very easy, and the ACC revenue is kind of on a fixed, the slope on that line is pretty fixed, Greg. And I mean, compared to what they could make in the next deal, even the Big 12 coming up before the ACC would again. I mean, pretty much every team in the ACC would end up in a better spot if they went to one of those three conferences. I think maybe we end up at Power 4 for this round, but I certainly think we're headed to Power 3, and it could be sooner. But those are just my thoughts, Greg.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Great
on the
call.
show, and,
Thank you, Ryan.
thanks,
Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Great call, Ryan, as always. Let me get to a few things here. Brett McMurphy in that article also talked about ACC expansion, that ESPN has a pro rata clause that whoever the ACC would take in, those schools would get paid the same as the current ACC schools. Some G5 candidates are there. But again, it's not a solution. Don't think the ACC is going to expand. We at Peek Around the Corner have spent no time talking about potential ACC expansion. Nobody has told us that it's going to happen. So we just don't spend any time on it. It doesn't. Sure, they could bring in a couple G5 schools, have them come in as a discount, have them share some of the playoff money that's becoming Power 5 programs and spread that around to other ACC schools so they make a few $1 million more. Hold on one second.
Call from.
I did not get the name. Hello. I can't hear you. No, can't hear you. Try to call back. We're not getting anything. Okay. So anyways, ACC expansion is not a solution for the ACC. There's a question in the chat saying, do you see SEC in the Big Ten voting out members to bring in new other valuable ones?
Call from.
We're not getting
To
it.
accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
We're not getting it. Is that Monovision? We're not getting a voice coming through. Not getting a voice coming through. Okay. I know I don't see that happening anytime soon. Now, could that happen 20 years down the road? Yes. I do not see the Big Ten and the SEC voting out a member. Could some of those schools leave for some sort of two super leagues? Some of the lesser Big Ten valued schools on the SEC? Yeah, sure. But I'm not going to spend any time about it on Peek Around the Corner because it's not happening for a decade or 2 decades, if it ever happens at all. So yeah, we got too much to talk about. There's too many changes going on to spend really much time about something that could happen 20 years down the road. What is Pac-12? Nathan puts up a comment. Greg, can you explain what's going on in Act 11? It seems like nothing is happening on the outside. Well, I think we're getting ready for Act 12. Action is going to be around Act 12, if there is any action. Act 12, we believe it's going to happen around June 1st. Act 11, the stage is set. Colorado's in the middle. Arizona's taking a couple more steps to go into the middle of the stage, but they're not there yet. Kliakoff is there. Brett Yormark is there. UConn's in the back row taking notes. In the front row is Oregon and Washington with a Fox executive in the middle. Gonzaga got in the car and they drove off. That is what's Act 11 is going on right now. I think there's a little bit of something happening this week. Again, one of those details that we're going to be able to give. Once we know if Colorado is a stick or a go, there is some detail. There's a lot of details we're going to be able to explain. Either way, if Colorado sticks to the Pac-12, we'll be able to talk about how close it was to coming from Colorado going to the Big 12. If the Colorado moves to the Big 12, we'll be able to explain the reasons why. We'll be able to give you the details of the shot to the solar plexus that happened. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. I tell you what, if Act 12 comes in June 1st, and everybody's still sticking with the Pac-12, that line that we have set at PATC Sportsbook of -5.5, that's going to keep dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping until the Pac-12 staying together becomes the favorite. That's what we're going to do. We talked about that about 3 weeks ago. We talked about that in the hot bubble action. Pac-12 took a shot to the rib cage. And right now, as of May 21st, they are still standing. Let's see what happens in Act 12 that begins around June 1st. Maybe a day or two before, maybe a day after. We'll see what happens in Act 12. But if Act 12 is not an action scene, then that line is going to keep dropping and dropping and dropping. So yeah, we did not expect anything to happen in this last few days or in the next few days, but keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. You guys are talking about Metropolitan Stadium. Yeah, Vikings games got awfully cold.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, thanks for calling again. The floor is yours.
I just wanted to see if I could ask you a quick question about Colorado, and if you're able to answer anything.
Yes.
Is there anything to there possibly being something needing to be in the contract that allows them to, let's say, not necessarily stay in the Big 12 for a long period of time? That could be a sticking point.
No, no, I haven't heard anything like that. There is, there is no more. There is no more. There are no more issues. There is no sticking points. Everything's. I'm probably giving up a little bit more than I should be, but it's
I'm not trying to pull.
I'm just saying there is no. It's a stick or go situation for Colorado. They have a decision to make. Are they going to wait until a Pac-12 deal gets in front of them and then they make the decision, or will they make a decision before a deal gets in front of them? They have all the answers they need from the Big 12. They got it all. They're way past. Everything is laid out. Now, some people aren't going to believe. What?
They're basically just covering their butt at this point, like, because they're going to catch some slack on it when they do it. So they want to make sure that.
Or they want to stay with their Pac-12 peers. I'm just saying, there is no more groundwork. There is no more pen. Trying to figure this out, trying to figure that out. There's a lot of work that's been done. People aren't going to believe it. That's fine. Colorado has put themselves in a position, stick or go, and we're going to find out what decision they make. I believe shortly. Some people believe it's going to go into July. I don't think so. If it goes to July, then we believe at Peek Around the Corner that the Pac-12 is going to stick together. They're going to try to figure this out. And maybe Colorado trusts Oregon and Washington, telling them that they're going to stick it out for a couple more years. We shall see. But we think Act 12 begins around June 1st.
We'll see. It just feels like a dog and pony show as long as no one's signing a gore. Without a gore, like with this all this talk going on, what partner would want to sign for like a big deal when it seems like people might be going at any moment? Like, why would you want to sign a big deal without a gore?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult for George Kliavkoff. The longer he waited, the more variables came into play. And now you got a Big Ten president saying this stuff. It's very difficult. I'm telling you guys.
Washington and Oregon aren't going to sign it.
We'll see what Big Ten is telling them. Maybe Big Ten comes up to where they say we just can't do it now. But I'm telling you, and that's the the charts and the graphs and the spreadsheets that show that the Pac-12 schools want to stay together because they are peers and they're large research universities. They don't want to split. All that is absolutely correct. All of it.
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
They're academic schools. And people
that's
don't
why
realize Colorado is a gigantic institution. Like,
Yep.
its research is massive. Like, it's at like $1.3, $1.4 billion. Like, they had to lower their academic standards for transfer just so that they could be competitive in sports the way it is now.
Yep.
So I believe that they're like, and last thing we want to do is leave, but
that's the last thing they want to do. But we're at that point where they're way past. There's still people out there who think Colorado's not seriously thinking about it. Arizona's not seriously thinking about it. And we're way past that storyline. We're way past it. They're seriously thinking about it. They've got everything they need to make a decision. And we believe Colorado, we have reasons to believe Colorado is in the middle of the stage. And we'll see if it's an action scene at Act 12 or if it's not.
Gotcha. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. I was just kind of curious about that because it just seems like it's just teetering on the edge. So
it is teetering on the edge. It's on the knife's edge. It has been for a while. Yep.
It's
All right.
tough watching. I appreciate it, buddy. Have a great night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Great call. Lot of great calls tonight. I think I just explained the PAC Act 11.
Call from
Mona Visions, back in the catbird seat. What do you got to say, good sir?
Well, I would just like to reply to my good friend Will Duke. Man's name is Will Duke, not Wild Dude. I don't know where you keep getting that from.
Wild Oot.
It's Will Duke.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll try to remember that.
I appreciate where Will's coming from. Yes, I know it's not fair to Utah. Yes, I know it's not fair to the other PAC schools. I completely understand that. But this is the free pizza rule. USC and UCLA came to the Big offering free pizza. And if the Big Ten said, no, we're not going to eat that pizza was going to go to the SEC.
Yeah.
Despite being the Southeastern Conference, they were going to sign both of them. So USC and UCLA were leaving that conference regardless. They wanted out.
Yes. And they would have went independent if yeah.
Yeah, they wanted out. I mean, So I appreciate where he's coming from, but if he's looking to blame anybody, the people he needs to blame are at Notre Dame. If Notre Dame had just taken a 12th slot when we added Penn State, none of this would be happening right now. Texas and Oklahoma, Nebraska would still be in the Big 12. There'd still be a pack with USC and UCLA. So I just wanted to let Will know this is all Notre Dame's fault because Notre Dame has to be a snowflake and get their own way. If they'd have just joined us in the 1990s, none of this would be happening right now. So it's free pizza, Will do. Free pizza.
Once again, it all comes back around to Notre Dame, right? Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's where it started and it's where it's going to end. When we get Notre Dame, that'll be the end.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We've wanted it for a long time. They've resisted for a long time. Now we're getting really aggressive about it and really constricting them. But, yeah, they started all this. So blame the Irish. That's all I can tell you, Will.
Got it. And I'm Irish, so got it. Thank you. Great call. I think we're going to end it there, guys. I appreciate you all coming in. Peek around the corner, Sunday night edition. Wow. What a weekend. What a week. Next week is going to be even more dramatic. The next week after that could be really dramatic. We're gonna sprinkle in some football here. At some point, I'm going to do an episode on the top 10 receivers coming in college football sometime this week for this 2023 season. Of course, 2 Buckeyes are in the top 2 of that list. So a lot of great, and two Washington Huskies are also on that top 10 list. So we're going to be talking about that and a lot of other things in college football, but we have to go where the story goes. And the story is the Pac-12 saga and now the ACC saga, which is going to last for a very, very long time. I don't expect any fireworks to happen in ACC country for a while, but you know what? At this point, who really knows? Who really knows? Nobody knows. Especially a nobody like me. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Share this video. Stick with us. But you have to subscribe to get notified. Follow us at Flug Empire on our Twitter account. Sometimes we give you a little bit of a heads up when we're coming on live again. So until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.